Hi, my name is Liam. I'm a sophomore in computer science, and here at Mines, I'm involved in skiing and soccer. I study computer science because I'm a big fan of the whole puzzle solving process. I welcome you to this Computer Science at Mines Python video. Today we are talking about while loops in Python, but first, have you heard about the new crazy supercomputer? It's so fast it executes an infinite loop in 6 seconds. What? For those of you who don't know what an infinite loop is, you'll realize this doesn't make much sense. That is, an infinite loop never ends. Though, I wonder if something absurd like this might be possible with how fast technology is progressing. To begin, let's start with the definition for our topic today. A while loop is a loop that checks a condition and then, if true, enters a block of indented code. As long as the condition remains true, the block of code is repeated over and over and over again. If the condition becomes false, the while loop then ends. These loops are incredibly useful, but you need to be careful. If a while loop is not implemented correctly, it might end up running forever, even though an infinite loop isn't what you intended. With that warning out of the way, can you figure out how many times a snippet of code will print hello world? We encourage you to pause the video and figure it out and then type the loop into your Python interpreter and find out if you were correct. This slide shows a diagram that helps us visualize the flow of the while loop. While the initial condition of the while loop is true, the program will begin executing the indented code block that follows the while loop. Once the end of the code block is reached, the condition will be checked again. If the condition is still true, the block of indented code will be executed again. This loop will happen over and over and over, until something in the code block makes the condition statement false. If the condition is ever false, then your program will execute the command that is directly below the loop. Think about a while loop as an if statement in body that repeats as long as the condition is true. The main difference between a while and an if is that an if statement executes its body once if its condition is true. On the other hand, a while statement will repeat its body while the condition is true. With that in mind, please pause the video and determine the values of I for each of these snippets of code. We'll wait for you to finish. Are you ready for the answers? After the code snippet on the left executes, I will be equal to 2. After the code snippet on the right executes, I will be equal to 11. If you do not understand how I would be 2 and 11 after the code executes, please come into office hours. Let us now talk about a few keywords that are valuable to control a loop's flow. For example, suppose we don't want all the indented code to execute if I is assigned the value of 2. In this case, we would use a continue statement. The keyword continue has the program execution continue to the next iteration of a loop. In other words, when a continue statement is executed, your program will jump back up to the conditional statement without running the code that exists between the continue statement and the end of your loop. For example, the code on the slide will not output I is not 2, it is 2. Another keyword available for flow control is break. A break statement will immediately stop iterating through a loop. For example, the code on the slide shows how we use a break statement to stop the loop when the user enters 0. Can you think of any other ways break statements could be useful? Our final Python keyword we will learn today is pass. This statement functionally does nothing, so what's the point? Well, software engineers use pass as a placeholder for code they haven't yet written, but will at a later time. Here's a quick note for those who know how to program in another language. Unlike other languages, Python does not have a do-while loop. It's not needed though, as do-while can easily be implemented with a while true and break. A while loop and a counter variable can be used to iterate over a list. This slide illustrates an example of that. We will learn another type of loop that works great with lists on a future video. Now that you know the basics on while loops, let's jump into a few examples. Please pause the video and practice what you've just learned. That is, first, trace the loop on the slide by hand. We suggest you use pencil and paper to keep track of the values stored in the variables x and I. After you finish tracing the loop, type the loop into a Python file, execute it, and check whether you're correct or not. We'll give you a second to pause the video so you can work through this practice problem. Here's another example. Can you determine what the output will be with this code snippet? Again, please pause the video so you can first trace the code by hand, and then type it in and execute it. Alright, one last example. I know you can do it. Please pause the video again. That concludes our video. We hope you now have a good understanding of how while loops and 3 new keywords work within Python. You now know a way to loop through data, but be careful and avoid any unwanted infinite loops. We encourage you to launch your Python interpreter and keep practicing. Thanks for tuning in. See you around campus.